Welcome to Divine Downloads. I'm your host, Cassandra, and today I am excited to introduce you to my spirit baby psychic, or as Sufi likes to call herself, a baby ambassador, which is a perfect description of all that she embodies because she is so much more than just a spirit baby psychic, which is how we met. She's also a birth attendant, doula, postpartum specialist, and but how I met her was through a friend who, when I was thinking of conceiving, recommended her to see if there were any spirit babies. If any of you have read that book, Spirit Babies, I highly recommend it if you're curious about conceiving a child, or if you're just fascinated with all things spiritual. I would find it really interesting, even if I didn't want to have a child, to be honest. But I went to see Sufi to see if I had any spirit babies connected to me. And one of the really interesting things was I actually had an experience of this first spirit baby that wanted to come through, being a boy and kind of seeing what he looked like. And he had come through quite a few years earlier, even before I met my husband. Um, and so I didn't tell Sufi anything going into it. And the first thing I remember her saying when we connected was, he's telling me you've already met, and that, he's a boy, and that he's shown himself to you. And I was instantly blown away. And then of course she went on to describe way more in detail about what was going on. But I was just so thrilled to have her on the podcast and ask her all of these juicy spiritual connections to our babies and what babies want us to know questions. So without further ado, let's dive in.
Okay, so Sufi, I am so happy that you're willing to come on the podcast. I met you a few years ago, it feels like now, through a girlfriend of mine who utilized you. I believe she utilized your baby reading services when she was pregnant. But then I remember I was really curious when I think I was even right when I got married or a little bit before I got married, when we were just even thinking about having a baby. I was really curious about your psychic abilities. I had read the book Spirit Babies, and my friend had mentioned you, and what we had this incredible reading where you connected to two potential spirit babies and gave me a little bit about their personalities, and it was just really affirming for a lot of the inspiration that I had already had in some of my meditations come up, and confirming. So I wanted to have you up and talk about all of this, this whole world of how you connect to people's spirit babies, how you can kind of, if all of the things. But let's dive in. We were talking right before we started this podcast, and you define yourself as a baby ambassador, which I absolutely love. Can you tell me a little bit about what does being a baby ambassador involve? Because I know you have such a multitude of services that you do.
Yeah, it's really something. When I first entered, I was gonna be a midwife. I wasn't into psychic this or psychic that. I wasn't into mediumship or anything like that. I was gonna be a midwife. And I had this spiritual awakening, the birth of my own son. And I just was sort of cracked wide open and started hearing, seeing, feeling stuff in the birth room, postpartum, and it felt like babies were like, they don't think we're real, or they don't think we're really here. And who's going to speak for us? Now there are many more baby ambassadors, thanks to Spirit Baby book. But so, and then I resisted that a little bit. I was like, no, I want to be a traditional medium. I just want to be a medium. I don't want to just be the baby medium. But as I kept going, I was like, and other mediums were like, no, every medium has a category, usually has a forte. And I love going to births. and it just kept getting stronger and stronger. And the babies felt like the messages or downloads I was getting was like, look, there are a lot of mediums connecting to people who pass away, but who will speak for us and tell our parents that what they see, hear, and feel is real, and that we are here now. And so I'm just here to give a voice to little ones who want their parents to know, even before they come in, yes, what you feel is real, what you dream is real. We have had a soul connection for many lives. I'm just here as the baby ambassador to go, yes, it's real. You're not crazy. This is real. If we have a soul that we can connect with when we pass, why is it crazy to consider that the soul that's eternal can't be connected to from the beginning? I
Absolutely.
I'll stop there. But anyway, yeah.
I love that. I love that. So how did that first, when you were having that awakening and things are opening up for you and you're getting these messages, what did that did you was it visions? Was it hearing something? How did that kind of start coming through? How did they start speaking with you?
It's visual and sensory. So I will hear, see, and feel the information. A pinnacle postpartum client that I worked with, I've told this story many times, but he showed me and let me feel his panic around the fear that his father was dying. And he had stopped eating and sleeping, and was inconsolable. And this was a baby that was really rock solid. I had worked with this baby for 3 months and I knew his dad wasn't dying. Um, but he let me know through hearing, seeing, feeling of his fear. And then I just talked to mom, this is what he fears. And together we pieced out, oh, wait a minute. Night nurse was holding him all night and she just found out that her dad was terminal. Oh, wait a minute. Today is the anniversary of my dad's death, said the mom. Oh, wait a minute. My husband was doing the will last night, and baby was feeling all this and needed just some help and assistance organizing what was going on. So I just said, I put my hand on baby on the changing table where I say all change is possible. And I said, look, your daddy's safe. Mommy and daddy carry the big feelings. Your job is to eat, play, grow, and explore. And you were feeling your night nurse. You were feeling grandpa. I just defined it. And the big piece was immediately after I defined it, he went straight to the breast and slept for 4 hours. So when I
No.
saw a physical reaction, I was like, oh gosh, there's something here. I need to pay attention to this. So anytime I'm in the birth room or postpartum, I'm checking in. Anything you want to share? Anything you want to say? Sometimes they're like, no, we're good. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And when you're speaking those things to them, you're speaking them out loud, right?
In front of mom,
In front of,
because my big work or my work is I want mothers to also see how it works and that it's real. And, just to define it for them and say, like, gosh, if you're having a hard day and you want to kind of sit with baby and clarify, baby on the changing table, daddy and I were fighting. This is why, da 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 da. We love you. We're going to work this out. Whatever issues going on, this is Earth. Sometimes it's like, uh, it helps us to define it, especially when they're so small.
that's really affirming because one of the things that I had done because I have struggled with the desire to go back to work more and then feeling guilty about, whether I have help. Like, obviously, I have help now, so I can record a podcast. My mother in law is here. But, like, when even when I'm just like with him by myself and I'm hoping he goes down for a nap so that I can get a little work done while he's napping. When I'm having a hard day with that, I try to articulate it to him and say, mom's not upset with you, or, it's not about you. It's just mom's really trying to get this one thing done and just doesn't really know how to navigate this new waters right now or whatnot. Um, and it's that's affirming to know that sometimes they just need to hear it. And what about, so
That's it.
you work with women through like the whole spectrum from like preconception to postpartum. So starting from the like preconception, when you do sessions with someone, or even if like in your interactions in life, I don't know how it appears to you psychically, do you notice if people, I know in the book Spirit Babies, and forgive me, but that's like my only reference for really point, is that he would see them as like kind of little like dots, I'm gonna call them, right?
Lights.
Lights in the auric field. Do you see that in people, or when you tune in with someone, how do you know if they have spirit babies attached to them?
So I will see a physical baby, and or sometimes I will see, um, like, I'm not sure if this happened with Hudson, but I will see an old man. Sometimes I'll see an old man, and I'll be like, oh, this is an old soul. And most recent life was old man aspect. So I don't see lights like Walter did. I actually see a person, and then I will also see proximity,
Mm.
as far as understanding timing, which it's really hard. Like some people want me to be like, you know, the great diviner and be like, yes, you will get pregnant at this time. I can get proximate, but it's ever changing. And baby, sometimes I'll feel a baby's right on top of mom. And I'll be like, are you pregnant now? And she's like, oh my gosh, yes, I think so. So that's how. And it's like the baby sitting on the shoulder, like, I'm here.
I love that. I think when we had our last session, you asked me that. You're like, "Are you pregnant now?" And I'm like, I had just gotten my period, so I wasn't, but I got pregnant like a month later, month and a half later. So it was obviously very, very, very close. Have you ever had someone come to you and and you don't see a spirit baby, even though they want a baby?
Yeah, this is hard. This is hard. So just because I'm not seeing it in the moment doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And I'm very careful with this because a lot of fertility, people don't really acknowledge this, but there's a lot of energetics involved with fertility. Everybody's focused on the physical, but my place and my piece in the fertility journey is energetics. Um, so yes, I had a reading recently where I wasn't seeing it in the moment, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And I always want to err on the side of hope, because for me to sit there and say, sorry, I don't think you're going to have a kid, that in and of itself is going to work against. And I don't walk around thinking I know everything about the universe and how it works. And there are a lot of moving pieces in fertility. Now, is this a way of me trying to make myself right? No, this is me being a good ambassador towards the positive. A connoisseur of possibility is my goal. So, here's what I'm seeing. Here are things that you could do. So it wasn't a no with this client. I was just like, here's some things I see that you could be working on. Your quality of water. Um, I see your like high salt content. What's that about? So we talk about nutrition. So I work corners of it. Yeah.
And is there any validity or truth to um, a partner coming in and like the let's say in a typical like heterosexual relationship, the man having a spirit baby attached to him?
Yes, yes. So I just did a couple that I love doing couples. I love when dads come along because at first I could tell the dad was like, but then I talked about his dream that he would dream about his daughter. And it went really quiet on the thing because here's the thing, they started out the reading not talking about the daughter. It was twofold. Uh, you know, the mom, I said, I'm sorry. The mom said she hadn't had a miscarriage. Um, but I was getting very clearly a miscarriage and it was connected to dad. But then I'm like, they're married, they're a couple. I don't understand this. And so I mentioned the daughter, the lost daughter, and he was getting teary. And his first wife had passed, and he lost his daughter with her.
Oh,
And this
wow.
daughter, he felt the connection very strong, very strong. So I'm always reminded that I can trust the field. So sometimes clients will be like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, well, just write it down. Maybe it'll make sense later. But, she just kept saying, no, I'm here. Anyway, her message was like, I'm going to come back around.
Oh,
I'm
that's
going to come back around.
so that's incredible. That's another thing I think a lot of people are always curious about with miscarriages or even with abortions, people that have had abortions when they were much younger or whenever actually, but um, if souls, do all souls tend to like come back again or do some like opt out after one go? Is that like their lesson complete?
So abortion's tricky.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm brave and I'm going to speak on it. So Walter talks about abortion in his book. And it's not, every medium is different, but it's not been my experience with babies who've been aborted. Like when he talks about it, he said he's encountered babies who are pissed off
Hmm.
and are withholding. That's not been my experience. And I've done a lot of abortion consultations because they are in their current state. Um, they have an overview that's uh, they're not stuck in a human form, so they're not as limited. Are they still their personality? Sure. Are they maybe bummed that they couldn't come through yet? Okay, sure. I've never met a soul that was angry that mom had an abortion. Mostly I feel compassion or understanding. Mostly I'm feeling from babies, and I'm not just trying to make women feel better. This is just what I'm experiencing. Mostly babies are saying, I want mom and dad to be in a place to welcome me. And they don't feel pushy to me. So that's my perspective.
And do you feel like, let's say in the flip of that, I don't know if this is the exact flip of this, but like in those instances when let's say a baby comes in between two people who maybe aren't married yet or don't even know if they want to get married or are in like a influx with their work or whatever, and like a quote unquote less than ideal situation, and maybe weren't even trying to get pregnant, do you feel like is there something like karmic with those souls that choose to pop in during those moments?
Oh, heck yeah. I did that to my own parents. I mean,
Like I'm coming.
my poor, my poor parents, I have apologized to them. I mean, think of it. My mom was 19, free in the 60s, having a good time with my Turkish father, who was also finally free for the first time from his family in Turkey. They're free. They're marching with Martin Luther King in Memphis in the 60s, Summer of Love, and boom, I become an equation. And I totally hijacked them. I totally hijacked them. I'm like, I'm getting in here because I really wanted, this is my interpretation of my journey. I really wanted what my father had to offer. And even what my mother had offer. My mother abandoned me on his own, putting himself through school until I was 8 when my stepmother came in. It was really hard. I often joke that I became a birth worker or a doula to flush out my feminine side. It was hard on those two. They had a shotgun wedding. My Southern Irish Catholic mother's brothers shot up my dad's car. I mean, this was crazy Bible Belt time, and here is this Turkish man getting this Southern girl pregnant. So I'm friends with my birth mother. We're very connected. I understand how and where she was, and my father too. They weren't perfect, but they were perfect for me and my work. And I really believe I love Carolyn Mace's book, Sacred Contracts. I really believe that we were all in a meeting on the other side, and I'm like, look, come on, I want to do this. Because my dad would say that because I came along, maybe he wouldn't have become and done so much. He sort of got, as your children come in, sometimes they can put a fire under you where you almost get more done and you create more. And my dad has always kind of acknowledged in a way that, yeah, that I sort of, they were in on it. They may not know, but I think they know they were in on it in some way. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Karma plays a part for sure.
I think so for sure. Because I mean I've always been of the I'm also a Carolyn Meese fan. I've always been of the belief that we choose our parents. And we choose our parents for the soul lessons that they can offer us and whatnot. And something I've had to remind myself of recently with that is also that, hey, like my son chose me and he kind of knew what he was getting into. I'm doing my best, but he chose a mom that really likes to work. He chose a mom that was already like on purpose when he came in. He chose me. And so he's not expecting me to be a completely different person for him, you know? And I think that's also helped me give my parents a lot of grace as well. Um, but I always find it interesting. I think just as I've been at the age where a lot of my friends are trying to have children right now, and we're seeing, I think, more than ever, healthy young women struggle with fertility. Um, how you'll see these instances where people get pregnant in very kind of inconvenient situations, like you were saying with your parents, right? And then a couple that maybe has the savings and the support and all the things and like everything ready to go, and they're just like just want the baby to come in. What are the, from all the sessions that you do with people, what are the things that you feel like you see commonly kind of come up that's blocking people or blocking the baby for coming through?
Well, something that a lot of people are or are not talking about, which is what's going on with the environment, what's going on with Earth. People don't hold on. People
Yeah.
don't really I don't know. I really feel we have to include Earth in this. And whether you believe it or not, there are aspects of going through the sixth stage of extinction. Not to put fear, not that we're going to be extinct tomorrow, but the Earth, as we can see, is obviously suffering under the weight of our populations. Um, so I feel that uh, our bodies are very attuned to the earth. Same with other species of animals, also seeing a dip in fertility across the board on the planet. If the body, and it's not for everybody, but I believe something I want to start the conversation about is like environment really plays a role. People are drinking water they think is really good for them, and it's not. The water is huge connected to fertility. Um, Drink that spring water, people. Make sure it's sourced right. There's so much going on. That's what I mean by there's too many moving parts with fertility.
Yeah.
But our bodies, I think, have a reaction.
Oh, absolutely. I have had I, luckily, I think was because just of my own like health and spiritual journey, was doing a lot of the like kind of non-toxic, all of that stuff for a while. But I've had a lot of girlfriends that struggled and then all of a sudden, read, I think there's a book called like Just the Egg, or It Starts with the Egg or whatever. And it goes in through like you really have to pay attention to what you're putting in your body, on your body, in your home, all of this stuff. And when they made a commitment and like really cleaned all that up, we ended up getting pregnant. And I think our environment is not, I mean, like you were saying, even with water, like so much of, even if you're buying spring water, but you're buying it in plastic, and then that plastic was in the sun, right? Not to like go down the dark hole, but there is so much that unfortunately we have to be aware of and we have to be so on top of, to really take care of our bodies. Um, as far as like do you ever see um, emotional blocks or like fear blocks around it?
Yeah,
Because I felt like for
oh yeah,
me on my journey, I almost feel like it took me a year and a half to get pregnant. And I think most of it was me not being sure if I was ready. Even though I like wanted it, I could still feel there was like a little bit of like an energy there of like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to give up this like time that I've had.
yeah. I'm careful with this one because I never want a woman to feel like it's all her fault. Sometimes it's a dad block. Sometimes
Mm.
dads aren't ready. I had a reading and this made so much sense. The baby is spirit baby reading. The baby's like, Daddy needs more time. And the mom laughed so hard because she was like, absolutely. She's like, I'm ready to go, but he really wants 2 more years. So sometimes they, you have that flexibility. Sometimes it's karma. Sometimes baby's like, yeah, okay, I'll wait. Um, and I've seen so much now and heard so much now. I don't get hysterical when clients want to get a reading and they're 35 and they're like, it's over for me. And I'm like, spirit has a way. Spirit has a way. And you can see with cancers, there's all these kind of stories, miracle stories about spirit has a way. I had one client, she had her first 2 babies, IVF. Um, she's 43. And I said, I see you pregnant in 3 months. She goes, impossible. I'm not doing IVF again. I'm 43. She was pregnant in 3 months naturally. Set up.
That's
She
amazing.
texted me. She goes, oh my God, you're right. I'm pregnant with my third. But for somebody else who's 43, that might not have worked out. There's something, let's all just consider there's something else going on. And it's not always, as humans, we want to put it in a box. Not so easy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's true. It's such a mystery. It's just such a mystery, pregnancy and birth, and when the souls come in and why they choose to come in and how many come in for each family. It's definitely fresh off of it. It's a very magical process. What's the difference, or what do you notice? What are your readings like when someone is pregnant and you tap into that?
So that's more experiential. Like I'll get sounds, I'll get taste. My favorite is the taste game. My favorite recently was the orange cracker. And I'm thinking, I know this client was really healthy. And I'm like, are you eating Cheez-Its? And she goes, oh my God, yes. I love Cheez-Its. It's my secret pleasure. She goes, I'm like, baby showing me orange crackers. And I think they're Cheez-Its. She goes, yep, absolutely. Um, so I love the taste game. Also, Oh gosh. So a baby came in about grandma being sick um, during a pregnancy read and mommy being sad. And mommy starts crying and she's afraid she's hurting the baby because her mom's, all of that. And so then I give tools for mom and dad to kind of share with baby updates. Mommy, daddy carry the big feelings. So it runs the gamut. Another one, baby hearing the constant like ping, ping, ping. Um, and it was something, the alarm on the phone, it was something like that, or sounds like, oh, the baby celebrating that he's gonna be born into a drumming family. Now these are phone readings. I know nothing and I don't see anything. And the mom's laughing. She's like, we're all drummers. We're buried in hand drums. And when I'm pregnant, I'm drumming. Just today, I was at a prenatal and prenatals, I'm the doula, but I don't Google my clients. I'm just sitting there in the prenatal, and I don't often do this because when I'm your doula, I'm your doula. But sometimes at the end of the prenatal, they want me to just check in with baby. So I did, and the baby's like, I'm hilarious. Tell them I'm going to be a comedian. And so I'm like, well, baby's cracking jokes and wants me to tell you he's going to be a comedian. And their eyes were just big. They're like, we're both comedians. That's our job. I don't know. I don't really follow comedians. Now I should Google them. But the baby's like, let them know I'm really funny. And mom, like, was freaking out. She's like, I felt that. I know. I feel my baby's hilarious. And I'm like, your baby's hilarious. Yeah.
That is wild. That's that is wild. And do you feel like, because going back to what you're saying that with the mother whose grandmother was sick and she was crying, I feel like that is a common thing. Like they tell you like, oh, if mom's crying, baby is crying. And I remember I had a moment like that where something during my pregnancy really upset me and I was crying, but then I was like panicking on top of crying because I was like, oh my God, like, like what am I doing to my baby? And oh God, it
Right.
was a whole thing. So how much of like our inner life is baby attuned to when we're pregnant, and do we have to worry if I feel like all of us go through the gamut of like stress, overwhelm, like, all different kinds of emotions.
So you know what's stressful for babies across the board is not being included on what's going on. So it's like this. There's a great book called Talking to Babies by Dr. Miriam Sager. She
Mm.
decreased infant mortality rate by half just by talking to babies in a Paris NICU. Talking to Babies by Dr. Miriam Sager. Now, um, what I want to say about the predator, I want to talk about the predator. Babies, if they feel included, let's focus on pregnancy. So something stressful, maybe a car accident or whatever you've just gone through. You immediately include baby. This is what's happening. Just like you're talking to a friend. This is what's happening. I'm fine. We're safe. This is what I'm going to do about it. Talk, 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 talk. Then mommy and daddy carry the big feelings. Your job is to eat, play, grow, and explore. We've got this. If you don't include, and I did this when I was pregnant 20 years ago, I was feeling, I think at 3 months gestation, when my son was 3 months gestation, I freaked out and I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And I cried. My husband cried. What are we doing? Oh my God. And we wanted baby, but we were overwhelmed. I tried to hide my feelings from my baby. I tried to shove it. And I think a lot of moms do this, try not to feel it, suck it in. So what happens here is this kind of can communicate to baby a flight or fight scenario, which means if there's a predator nearby and mom's running from a predator, does mom have time to feel her emotions? No, nobody's feeling emotions when you're trying to get away. So in pregnancy, try not to simulate not feeling. You want to feel. and you want to include baby on what's going on. So, in my world, the way I see it is the soul of the baby is standing next to you with a string attached to the fetus, the infant, the new. And this is why I do readings, spirit baby readings now at 30 weeks, I mean, pregnancy reading at 30 weeks gestation, because there's more energy given to the baby. So you have this soul while you're pregnant that's more all knowing than our human existence. So baby has that on its side. So guides, inspirers, ancestors on the other side are communicating with baby. This is what's going on. Everything's fine. Karmically, here's the piece. So baby's holding two spaces, and the space you're going to work with if you're pregnant is look, this is what I'm feeling today. I'm having a hard time. We love you. Da 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 da. Wanted to include you. That's going to take the lid off of any pressure of baby, and baby's going to not feel that, oh my gosh, what's going on? I don't feel anything. Mom's not letting me feel, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then at what point during the pregnancy do you feel like the soul comes into the body instead of being next to it?
I feel it's different for everybody, but mostly I feel integration happens over 6 months after baby's born. Um,
Mm.
Now, my son, I feel like almost his whole soul just popped into his body and he was overwhelmed by that. I can see babies postpartum. I call them high stimulation babies. They're hyper alert when they're born. You're like, whoa, that person's all in. You'll see these babies because they'll be like, oh, what's going on? I'm here. And sometimes it can be overwhelming for them. And it can translate as, oh, this kid has sensory issues. This kid's autistic. This kid, if they have seizures. What I feel and been finding, and this includes my experience with my son as well, my son had epilepsy. But before we figured out he had epilepsy, they thought, okay, he's autistic. Oh, he has sensory issues. For my husband and I, we just thought this is a huge soul in a little body, and he's kind of like trying to navigate that. So I think karmically we all have different experiences, but I'd say 75% of the time it's the string and it's slow integration, because women and babies are of one, this is science now, sharing one space for the first 6 months. Baby doesn't really understand the separation between from you that first 6 months. So I feel that's a slow integration. Um,
And
you
what's
know,
the best way? How do you as a mom in that scenario? This is exactly where I am right now. How do you assist them in that? Is there a way to assist them or things you should kind of like watch out for?
you know, less stimulus, more quiet. Um, what I adore and feel from Hudson is very grounded aspect. And but you're in the fourth month, right?
Hmm.
And we call it the effed up fours. Month four, uh, 4 years old, four, 14 years old. These are the effed up fours. It's everything gets thrown on its head. So this is where clients are trying to fix everything. Oh my God, everything was fine. And then we hit fourth month and everything's flipped. And there's all this neurological stuff happening in the fourth month. There's teething. I'm like, leave baby alone, scale back, don't no low on the stimulus, low down. Um, so it's individual. I would have to assess each baby kind of individually. But for my sensory crew, who are dealing, bless you moms, dealing with kids with sensory stuff, don't worry, don't panic. These are some pretty awesome kids. And these are big souls coming in. Yes, there are reasons autism's on the rise and all that, for sure. But there's also this new crew coming in, and it's like the big soul boom in the body. And so with these big souls, our kid couldn't watch a movie I think when he was 3, we tried to take him to that movie Cars. He
Oh yeah.
freaked out. Like we love movies, but we're like, not this kid. Even to this day, he's not a big, yeah. So you have to, it's individual and you have to just feel into it. For you, just make sure too, in the 4th month, you have camellia on hand. Do you have your camellia?
No. What is that?
Oh my gosh. It's I'll send you a picture. It's on Amazon. It's to soothe there for it's soothing for teething.
Oh,
Camellia. And it's an herb. It's herbal based.
oh,
Um,
nice.
Babies love it. It helps them sleep and it's natural.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
It will help in the 4th month.
Yeah, he's already going through his like sleep changes, and I think he's got a tooth coming and he's drooling.
There's so
Um,
much going on. It's hard. Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot. Um, I'm trying to think. What else do I want to ask? There's so many great questions. Is there any like universal messages that you feel like after all this time working with babies that you feel like babies are just trying to communicate to their parents or even to society as a whole about how to take care of them and how to interact with them?
Yeah. They want to be seen from day one. Who they are on day one, you can glean the personality from day one. Ask any mom of more than one kid, um, you know, who my son is who he was that first day. And you feel it. As moms, you feel it, but you'll kind of reason it away, like, no. So the great sadness for babies, and why I'm doing this work is I never want to hear a postpartum client say again, ever, does my baby know me? This baby was 2 months old, and the mom asked me those questions, and I knew I failed her as a postpartum doula and as a baby ambassador. I wasn't doing readings then, but then I was like, something's wrong here. People are still believing babies are blank slates when they're born. Yale had a study says, oh, babies show preference at 2 months old. No, they don't. Babies show preference in the first week. Ask any doula, ask any nurse, anybody who's plugged in, you can see preference in your baby in the first week. Stop dumbing babies down. They want to be seen and acknowledged, and they want to be learned. Books are great, but books are created for public consumption. Babies want you to learn them first, then apply tools. And include yourself. Parents are not including themselves. Baby came to you. You have sense. Now be safe. Follow the experts. Follow medical advice, of course. But I had a mom say, I disagree with the doctor. Doctor told me to do X, Y, and Z. And she chose to do something different around breastfeeding. And she followed her own instinct. Bravo. Bravo. A man telling you about your breastfeeding journey and you feel something different and you're going to stand on your own 2 feet and go, this is what I'm choosing for my baby. Bravo. Right. So my passion is I want moms to check in with themselves, check in with their babies, and acknowledge the baby in the room.
Oh,
Acknowledge that big soul in the room. Now here's another piece. I'm just going to add this because I'm a mom and I had a hard postpartum, and God forbid my baby felt my dread and depression when I was, because I love my work and I love being busy, and I felt first 4 months of postpartum was terrifying and brutal for me. And I wasn't diagnosed with postpartum depression, but I had really severe blues. And then that made me sad because I was like, well, I've just ruined my baby because he has a sad mommy. But no, no, I just was honest with him. I first apologized. I'm really sorry. I'm having a hard time doing my best here, and I just organically did that. And now that's everything. That's all they want. Isn't that what we all want? Just
yeah.
to be like, hey, I'm messing up here, or I'm just being real in the moment.
Yeah.
And They understand. Kids want to forgive, and kids adore and know the price a parent pays for bringing them in.
No, I that's definitely been something I've been trying to do with my son. Is just let him know, like, mommy loves you. It's not about you. Mommy's just figuring out this whole new way of operating in the world. Mommy has other things that she really loved, before you came along as well. And she's trying to juggle it all. And some days it makes her sad, or some days it makes her tired. Some days it makes her, you know. Um, I love what you said about from that first time you meet him, because I did a home birth at home, and the when my midwife she like whatever pulled him from under me so that I could bring him in my arms in the pool, and it was like a second, and then as soon as he was like here, he like opened his eyes so wide, and he recognized my voice, of course, but also my midwife's voice and my husband's voice, like, and he was like tracking them already with their eyes when they spoke. And she was just like, oh my goodness, like. And from that night, and even the follow-up checkup appointments, I always assumed for sure he was going to have an instant connection with me and my husband. But I could even see how at ease he was with my midwife from hearing her throughout the whole journey. She was equally like already like such a like safe like family member type space, which was really, really cool to see that he had felt that. One of the things that came to me before I went into labor was just how important it was for him, for whatever reason, to be reminded during the birth process that he was safe, right? And so I shared that with her and my doula and my birth team, and we all kind of like held that space that, like, you're safe. And I, was blessed to have a pretty straightforward, beautiful home birth experience, feeling really, really safe the whole time. And but one of the things I was curious about, because I just, in my personal experience, and I just being completely transparent, I don't know if I'm biased about this because my birth did turn out the way I hoped it would. Um, do you believe that babies choose their birth, or do you think that there are different now, like, external circumstances that sometimes get in the way of the birth? Because I've wondered I'm in a mommy and me group, and a good amount of the women did not have the kinds of births that they had hoped to have. And the spiritual part of me would like to think that perhaps there was their own like soul lesson, or the baby, was giving the mother a soul lesson in that birth. But I'm curious what your experience is with that, or thoughts on that.
Yeah. So first, I always tell clients babies prefer emotionally intact parents over a birthing style. So with it, because I was an assistant midwife, I attended 40 home water births in 3 months in my training. And I've never seen an easy birth, but I've seen easier births than some. And what I noticed is what the mother and father needed karmically to learn, thus the birth, and the baby too. So the different variations of birth, C-section, medicated induction, there is in part, sure, a kind of karmic piece. My own experience would lead to that. Like, I was already a doula when I got pregnant. So I thought, and an assistant midwife. So I thought, oh, I've got this, right? But why is it? So there are certain things that keep coming up. Why is it that um, more often than not, the most chaotic births are births of midwives, doctors, nurses, doulas? We have the most difficult, chaotic births. What's that about? And my birth experience greatly informed my work, and my son, it just was perfect. That how he was born was perfect for what he needs and aspects of him. So I really feel the birth. I think sometimes there's choice and then sometimes there's karmic aspects. I think some people are like, on the other side making their contract, and they're like, okay, great, we've got the perfect home birth set up. And then the client's best friend passes away and she's deep in grief while she's pregnant. This actually happened. And grief and birth share the room. Midwives will say this often, that birth and death walk hand in hand in some ways, which sounds morbid, but all you have to do in the room with grief and loss, and I've had to, and this kind of works, is acknowledge it in the room during the labor. But in this instant, my client's labor just shut down. She kind of shut down. It couldn't work out for her. She needed assistance. And in part, it was because she was in such deep grief and somewhat trauma at losing her best friend,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So we have all these different things that come up, life, that can throw a curveball. But you know what's most important? I want to also be an ambassador that all birth is sacred, and you are not a fail. You are not a fail if you didn't get the birth you wanted. Um, do your best. And as a doula, I'm pro what's working in the moment. I'm a Taoist. I love home birth. I love a sacred C-section. Every baby has a different coming in experience. And there's a lot in our world that's affecting birth. And I'm also want to be the advocate, or I want to say right now that hospitals are blowing me away. Cedars and St. John's specifically. I want to give a shout out because I'm seeing attention, because I've been doing this 23 years now. I'm seeing changes and attention and grace that I haven't seen before. And we're privileged in Los Angeles. We have some great hospitals and some great doctors. I understand this. But yeah, I think a lot of it's karma. I mean, oh, so let me just tell you real quick about my birth, and this will explain why I needed to have the birth I did. So I had gestational diabetes. Do I love sugar and candy? Oh, yes. Um, I was healthy. I was eating the perfect things. And then third trimester, all I wanted was In-N-Out burger. I failed my gestational diabetes test. I had to be induced at 38 weeks. I said, screw you. I want 40 weeks. So I fought for 40 weeks, induced me at 40 weeks. Um, induction. I got an epidural at 6 centimeters. I hung in with Pitocin when they were hiking Pitocin way up. This is in 2004. And I was like, okay, I can't do it anymore. So the 3 a.m. intern gives me the epidural, falls out. It doesn't work on one side. So I have a natural labor on the left side, and I have a medicated labor on the right side.
Oh my
I know. I
goodness.
put 3 hours, and I just looked at my doctor and I'm like, I'm headed for a C-section. Am I headed for a C-section? She said, yeah, because his D cells were pretty bad. He was asynclitic, and we didn't have spinning babies then. If I had spinning babies, I would have had that baby vaginally. But this C-section was the biggest gift. My kid kept ramming into my left hip. Okay. C-section. Who's going to be the most compassionate doula in the room if you need X, Y, and Z? That'd be me. Because I can speak to the C-section. I can speak to the induction. And you know what my son said when he was 3? I
What?
never talked about the birth with him. He was 3, just turned 3. Mommy, what was that crashing in your tummy? He kept crashing into my left hip, but I never said that to him.
Wow.
That was the beginning of me going, whoa, how he knew? And that's exactly how I would define it, crashing into my left hip. And Princeton's now doing a study. Please, everybody, collect the things your kids say between 3 and 4. Send it to Princeton. They're doing a past life study. Kids say the craziest things.
This I cannot wait for. I cannot wait. I'm like, I want to hear all the things. I've read that book, Cosmic Cradle, where they talk about how sometimes they'll remember. Like, I took my son to Paris when he was in utero, and I was like, we're having a little Paris adventure, and I wonder, I hope that we'll see one day if he remembers any of that. But there are all these stories in Cosmic Cradle about how they remember like certain things that you did with them when they were in utero, and then sometimes even their birth experience. And I mean, that is just, um, do you think that that has always been a thing, or do you think the souls that are coming in right now are remembering more than they have in the past? Because I just heard about it so much more recently.
I think we're all more tolerant now of our gifts as humans. This is why I don't like to define myself so much anymore. Oh, I'm a medium. I'm a psychic medium. Oh, no, we are all psychic mediums. I'm sorry. I was on the bandwagon for a while, like not everybody can be a medium. Oh, yes, we can. I think we are all developing and moving to a space now where look at indigenous tribes. Indigenous tribes don't walk around defining themselves as like, who gets the most crap and I can speak to this because I lived in Nepal and Sudan, and I lived with indigenous tribes. And no, shamans get the most crap and the least respect in their tribe, but it's not a big deal. And I think we're all just really waking up now more, and there's more tolerance for it. It's kind of backsliding a little bit now with mediums, a little bit, but there were just TV shows. More mediums came out of the closet once those TV shows started coming on.
Yeah,
You weren't going to be burned at the stake, or you weren't going to be penalized. Now it's more accepted. So I think as humans, we're like, yeah, we're pretty magical.
yeah.
That's my junket. We're all pretty magical, some more than others, but then life happens and that shuts you down. Like for me, I just didn't, because I had a lot of things happen when I was a kid, and I knew things with my family that I shouldn't have known, and that made them uncomfortable. So you get all this human stuff happening to you and you want to shut it down. Doesn't mean it's not there. I'm just trying to,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And also having more parents now that can foster those gifts, or that welcome those gifts, or that are going to listen real closely when they're like, in my other life, I was a businessman or whatever, right? And aren't going to be like, yeah, okay. Be like, yeah, tell me more about that life. I want to hear about that life.
That's just
uh,
what you say. You say, tell me more. What else?
I can't wait. I look forward to that that chapter. Um, One last question I had that popped into my head around, and similarly, I want to say that I like, as far as like birth goes, one of the things my doula told me, which is actually why I chose her as my doula when I was interviewing, was we were talking about, because I had was torn between a hospital birth center or a home birth, and she was like, your best birth is going to be where you feel like your nervous system can relax the most, right? Where you feel like, throw out all concepts of what you think is quote unquote best or logic, but just think like, where's your nervous system going to relax? And for me that was at home. But I've had other close friends that were torn between the two, and then when they really sat with that, were like, actually, that for me, that's going to be a hospital, right? And I feel like that's such an individual choice. And I also, my midwife had four children, four births, all very different, right? The whole gamut of experiences. And that was something that also made me feel really, really good, right? Really safe with her, no matter what, things turned out, because you could make your best plans, but that doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen. But another like kind of somewhat controversial thing, but I'm curious from the baby's aspect if there's any thoughts on this. Um, breastfeeding versus formula, right? Because I know that obviously a fed baby is the most important. And if you have physical, for some reason you're not producing milk, or there's trauma, there's something that happened and you're going to formula. But let's just say, in the context of someone that has a choice, do babies, do babies, how much do they care? Do they notice the difference energy of your breast milk versus formula? What is the baby consensus thought on this?
The baby consensus is, because I've seen babies reject the breast, mom's trying her darndest, doing everything right, the latch is right, and mom's and baby's not going for it, and mom's tearing her hair out, and then we find out that mom really hates it. So, you know, breast is best if it's a love language and if you're enjoying it. Formula is best if you're happy and it's a love language and you're enjoying it. Because yes, I know science wise breast is best. I understand this. But some moms, whatever reason, I have a client right now, she's like, I have trauma around my breasts, so I need to pump and give a bottle. And I would never ever, and her baby wouldn't be like, no, 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 excuse me, so I really feel this honor and reverence. Every soul that comes in, is my mother happy? Is No baby wants mom to be torturing herself and being like, I just had a mom, she didn't want to tell me that she was supplementing with a bottle. And I was like, I supplemented with a bottle. Breastfeeding was so hard. I had my husband making goat milk formula in the kitchen because they didn't sell, you couldn't get Holly back then.
Yeah.
I supplemented because I was going out of my mind and I felt like the worst mom ever. I was doing breast and supplementing.
Yeah.
I think that's the ideal.
Yeah.
Women have to let themselves off the hook. I think the worst thing you could do to your kid is to beat yourself up and then resent parenting because you have to meet some ideal. I think that's the answer. What
Ab-
works for your family? What makes your family tick? Is it just breastfeeding? Awesome. Is it formula? There are great formulas now. I love Holly goat milk formula. I know it's a little stinky, but there are options now. We're so lucky we have options.
yeah. I think it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's the exact one. I actually bought that for the Holly goat milk. I bought that for the pantry because I had a low milk supply in the beginning, and I was experiencing such high anxiety around getting my milk supply up that my husband was like, "Listen, let's just look up the best formulas. Let's get one, whatever, and let's have it in the pantry so you can see it there." And we haven't opened it. We haven't opened it yet, but honestly, having it there in and of itself took away a lot of my anxiety, you know, because it was like me just getting okay with, like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if that's, gonna, because it's one of those things where I feel like, breastfeeding, and for me, I find that, breastfeeding on days like today, whereas like one of my work days where I'm pumping in between calls and then, bring it downstairs, then she'll feed him. But tonight, when I get to breastfeed him, it'll feel more special, right? Because I didn't get to do it all day. Whereas when I'm alone and I'm breastfeeding all day, by the end of the day, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Let it be done.
I might have quit breastfeeding altogether if I didn't allow myself the help of formula in the beginning. Then I only breastfed my kid till he was 17 months old.
Yeah,
But had I not done the formula when I was losing my mind, I may have dumped breastfeeding altogether.
absolutely.
You
Yeah, absolutely.
Give yourself grace, flexibility.
I love that. And that's so sweet. It just it makes my heart flutter to just see at the end of the day they just want a happy mommy. And that's true. Like, I mean, if you think about that as, you know, for whatever you remember of your own childhood, right? It's like you didn't really care about the specifics so much. If mommy and daddy were good and they were happy, then that really translated to, you know, a good time for you and a good environment for you.
Because
Ah,
happy parents means safe parents
yeah, yeah.
most
Uh,
of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much, Sufi. This is just like, oh, this was so lovely. The timing was perfect. We kept
Yes.
on moving around the date for this interview, but honestly, it couldn't have fallen at a more perfect time postpartum for me, I think too. So thank you for being on. And before we wrap up, do you want to just share with anyone about how they can work with you or any resources you might have if they want to dive deeper?
Oh yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Spiritual Life of Babies or my website, joynavigation.com.
Yay! And I'll include all of those links below, whether you're watching this on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms. So you can follow her on Instagram or check out her website and book a session directly. I highly recommend it, no matter where you are in your conception or pregnancy or postpartum journey. Thank you so much, Sufi. This has been a pleasure.